Hey, guys, 'tis the season for kaiju, secret government organizations, new regenerations, goblins, and Greek gods. That's right, it's that weird, awkward pause between Christmas and New Year's where we're just geeking out on whatever's there. And this year, there's a lot. There is a lot. This is one of our What's News episodes. Today, we're going to be discussing Monarch on Apple TV Plus and Doctor Who's Christmas special with Rev Justin Coleman. He's back with us. And then later, we're going to have to do this in two halves because half the people who are going to be here got sick. So they're also going to be discussing Percy Jackson. So come back. We'll do the other half. If you're on YouTube, you'll get it as two different parts. If you're on the main feed podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcast Plus, just know that we have an amazing editor. It's me who just patched it together. And that's why you couldn't even tell that it was I don't know how well I will do at that, but I will be attempting to put them together as one episode after we get them both up and live on the YouTube feed. So speaking of which, if you are live on our YouTube feed, drop below, let us know where you're listening from. We'll announce it if you join us live, which right now I don't see anybody, but if you jump in, throw it up there and we will announce it. I am Joshua Noel, and I am here with the amazing, the wonderful Reverend Justin Coleman. Justin, welcome back, man. What you been geeking out on?
Oh man, well you named some of it. My youngest son has been enjoying Percy Jackson, so I'm gonna be looking forward to listening to the second half of this podcast. But he is just started reading the books. We're diving into the television series and really enjoying it. And you've already named Monarch, which I mentioned last time is one of my new favorite shows.
Ooh, so maybe we will touch on Percy Jackson on this one too. We'll see. Man, actually, I originally put Percy Jackson on here. I put Monarch on here because I was planning on watching it, and then I haven't got around to it yet because I started preparing for another episode we're doing. So 2024, our theme is other religions. So whether it's like fictional religions or real religions and stuff, and on the YouTube feed, we'll have like a separate thing of like how different religions are portrayed in fandoms. And the first one we're doing is Buddhism portrayed in fandoms. And for some reason, when I was going through my head of like, where do I see Buddhism? I was like, Shaolin Showdown, this old cartoon I used to watch. And then today, when I was supposed to be watching Monarch, I was like, let me just pull up an episode to kind of do a refresher. And I've been binge watching Shaolin Showdown. Actually, I discovered there's something called Shaolin Chronicles, where 10 years later, Disney tried to pick the series back up. So I'm watching that. There's a character named Ping Pong. I'm really just like, okay, I feel like we got some stereotypes going on Disney, but I'm rolling with it for now. Oh man, it's a good time though. It's a good time. I did want to throw out a special thank you to one of our supporters of the show, Daniel Sigmund. Thank you so much for your support and just for making episodes like this happen, keeping the lights on. Guys like Daniel is what makes this show possible. Thank you so much, man. And now we are, without further ado, first let's if you do have a moment, go over to Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podchaser, leave us a rating and a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like and subscribe button it gives Will smiles every time you hit that. And every time Will smiles, a baby is born. So just know when you like and subscribe our YouTube page, ultimately you are feeding into the growth of population and smiling babies. So with that, we're going to jump into our lightning round. And that's just, it's where we like to just discuss something that's not our main three topics that we just want to shout out real quick that new that we think's interesting. I got to shout out the Santa Clauses, Tim Allen, season 2 Santa Clauses. I was disappointed by the end of season 1 because it really looked like they were going to suggest maybe there could be a woman Santa Claus. Maybe there could be someone else of a different ethnicity who's going to be Santa Claus. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. This is cool. And they ultimately were like, actually, it's just Tim Allen. So I was kind of disappointed at the end of season 1. Season 2 hasn't really redeemed that. It just kind of is its own thing. It's fun. It's lighthearted. It's nice. Honestly, the main reason it's not one of the main topics in the last month is just because it hadn't picked up any of those themes that it hinted at in season 1 that I was like, this could have been really cool. But here we are. It's just happy Tim Allen Santa Claus. Justin, do you have anything you want to lift up really quick that's not any of our main topics today?
I have this Christmas season, just because I've finished preaching on it, watched about every version of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol that I could find, from Scrooge McDuck, Disney version, to Muppets, to Jim Carrey, to Patrick Stewart, to George C. Scott and Albert Finney, just all these different versions of it. There's an interesting dark version of it on FX.
What?
That is, I'm still trying to think about how I feel about it, but they sought to strip away some of the kind of the warm cheer of it, and really think about like what makes Scrooge, and this kind of a mean actor here, and if he is so bereft of warmth and humanity, what else might he do? Or his other interactions beyond those that we typically meditate on. So yeah, it's a darker telling. Still trying to figure out what I feel about it, but it's worth checking out if you are a Christmas Carol fan.
Yeah. Will Rose is watching currently, from Utah. So we got to shout out our fellow host Will. But no, that sounds fascinating. That the darker version of A Christmas Carol. I actually every year I make it a point to watch A Christmas Carol, the Doctor Who episode.
Yes.
No, Matt Smith is like one of my least favorite doctors, and I like this episode though. Like it's one of the I like that. It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 31st Street. I watch it every single year. It's just so good.
Yes.
Oh man. So thinking of other stuff I'm geeking out on right now in Moon Knight comics, Mark Septor, the Moon Knight, is dead, and coming up in this week, they're starting back the Vengeance of Moon Knight, or Vengeance of Moon Knight, something like that, and it's gonna be a Moon Knight comic without Mark Septor, and I'm really fascinated by that. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I'm sure. For those who don't know, I'm sure he'll be back because that's just how comic books do. But the reason Moon Knight comes back to life a lot, he dies and he comes back, and it's part of his whole thing. The reason he can't right now is the god he serves, Khonshu, that brings him back to life all the time, is actually imprisoned in Asgard. So he cannot bring Mark Septor back to life. So we got a lot of weird different gods, deity structures going on. And Mark Septor's just stuck dead for a while. So we get to see what his followers are going to do in his absence to carry on kind of his mission of vengeance and the night and justice and all that kind of stuff. And I always find it interesting to see what followers do in the absence of the hero.
Yeah,
I think it's because that's the most relatable to me, because it's basically all Christianity is. We are in the absence of Jesus presently being here, we are acting as Jesus. So it's always fun to see other people kind of doing the same thing in these stories and kind of playing with that. So I'm really excited for that. Also, I just watched Godzilla -1. Incredible film, like just a true piece of just cinema, just art. Trip Fuller keeps saying he wants to come on to do an episode about it, and that's the only reason it's not a main topic, and it is one of the reasons why Monarch is one of the main topics. So yeah, those are all the things I got left. Do you have anything else you wanted to lift up for the lightning round, or?
No, that's it. I'm interested in checking out what you're checking out.
Man, yeah, it's good stuff. But if that's all, we can jump to today's main topics, where we're going to be starting off. I mentioned earlier, I actually didn't get to watch it yet. Yeah, because I got stuck on Challenge Showdown. But I wanted to ask you some about it. Monarch on Apple Plus. It's part of the legacy film Godzilla Kong kind of movies that's been coming out. It's in between. If I'm thinking right, it's in between, or it's releasing between Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla X Kong, the new movie coming out in I think April. It's coming out. So what's the premise? What's going on in this series? I know it's like secret government stuff and less about the monsters, but that's about all I know.
Yeah, I mean, Monarch is this company that has been since Godzilla's first emergence, um, trying to discover what these monsters are all about. And so they're secret, they're government funded, um, and they are obsessed. It seems like they are obsessed with um, uh, 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 um, keeping another G Day, Godzilla Day event from happening. They're obsessed with it. But there are a couple different agendas within Monarch. And so this show is about, and they keep on toggling back between the present, where the kids of one of the early Monarch founders are trying to find their dad, and then going back in the past where they're seeing kind of the origins of Monarch, and are we trying to keep another G Day from happening, or are we seeking to help Godzilla accomplish whatever Godzilla is trying to accomplish in the world? So, we get these brief glimpses of Godzilla and other of these monsters, but it's mostly about the people and the work to either support them or keep them from emerging.
Huh. So the organization itself doesn't know where it wants to lean, or is it just like the people within are kind of rebelling against the mission? Kind of
No, it seems that the genesis of the organization was to understand these monsters and where they uh, where they come from, why they emerge, what their patterns are, how they behave, how they are a part of this broader ecosystem. And so there's almost a conservationist attitude from some of these early founders, but because they're military funded, the military is sitting there going, "We got to destroy these folks." And right off the bat, they try to blow up Godzilla and realize that didn't happen. And so the government becomes obsessed with figuring out how to destroy or keep these creatures at bay in some kind of way.
huh. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting. It's one of those, it's really weird with Godzilla minus one just coming out, seeing the difference of like America, like the Western culture version of these kaiju monster movie kind of things, and then seeing like where it originated in Japan and seeing like its kind of focus. Godzilla minus one is very much focused on the people, the story. It seems like that's what the show here is doing, which is interesting. But originally, Godzilla was almost just metaphor for nuclear war,
Right.
and you still kind of have some hints of that, and that's where I think it's interesting. We have these, government secret agencies and that kind of stuff tied to it, because even though the Westernized version is less, hey, nukes are bad, it is still kind of around this idea of war, global catastrophe, and how we handle this stuff, right?
Right. That's right. The so the kaiju or the titans or whatever you want to call these creatures, um, they seem to be emerging when they seem to care for balance, or at least Godzilla does, and you see how these different kaiju behave when the things are off balance. And so it does seem to be this. I'm not exactly sure the what the original intent was, but as this Godzilla mythology has expanded over time, there's a sense that Godzilla is uh, is destructive for sure, but the greater concern is destroying the delicate balance of this world. And so, this I do think it is about this kind of militarism and exploitation of the world and its resources. That is one perspective within the Monarch community. And then this other that says, no, we're the problem. So, whatever we need to do to maintain this balance, let's co-participate with that. At least with Godzilla, as Godzilla is an instrument of judgment on the rest of us as we upset the balance.
Oh, interesting. So how do you think all of this is going to feed into the new movie? Because the new movie, when I'm watching the trailer, it looks like a lot of it is you got Kong down in the center of the earth and all these other giant creatures down there. Like it looks like the journey to the center of the earth, but with a giant gorilla as the main character.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, because just the placement of when they released the show, there has to be some kind of tie-in, you would think, right?
I would think so, because Monarch emerges because in previous movies we see little bits of Monarch, right? So this is kind of an expansion of who this organization is, and within these at least Americanized Godzilla movies, I feel that they toggle back and forth between this idea of eco justice, like Godzilla as the ultimate eco justice warrior, and just pure fun, monsters roaming around fighting, and this this like dynamic duo of Godzilla and Kong both feels kind of campy, like some of those, there's that Godzilla era where so many of the movies just they're almost comical. And it feels like that, though they're pretending to be serious. But I have no idea how it's going to play into Monarch, because Monarch feels like a very serious meditation on the implications of again balance in our world, and I have no idea how this next movie is gonna connect with that.
Well, that's what's interesting about the streaming stuff these days, is like the shows, like these like little mini series that we keep getting in between movies, tend to go a lot deeper.
Yes,
and that's one I love the Captain America movies, like the MCU. I love all of them. The Winter Soldier is, in my opinion, the best thing the MCU's done. Yeah. But the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series, it definitely went a lot deeper into some of these political ideas surrounding what's happening there. And so I like that they're kind of doing the same. I really am looking forward to getting into this show. I like the giant eco justice warrior.
Yes,
I like that concept. Especially because that does go back to some of those themes of what are we doing with war. War doesn't just destroy people; it destroys the planet, which destroys future generations' hope and all this stuff. And I think it does kind of all tie together, so it's interesting. And I do love that stuff. I also do just love the giant monsters hating each other. Like I won't pretend like that's not part of it. Oh man, I actually. One of the comic series I'm wrapping up now, it's Godzilla, Here There Be Monsters, or Here There Be Dragons. And it's pirates with Godzilla. And it has him just fighting a lobster kaiju. And that one was a lot of fun, but I'm like, man, this campy. Yeah, campy's the word. Oh man. It's good stuff though. But I think it's time we move on to the real reason for the season,
Yes.
where we are back to Doctor Who Christmas specials. And man, I've missed these because we haven't really. That we kind of been robbed, right? Like the last few years, they were like, we might give you a New Year special, we might not do this, and I like that for the most part. Russell T Davies comes back, and he's very respectful with what all the other writers did with the Doctor. He's not like, we're going to undo stuff, anything like that. But he did immediately go, no, there's going to be a Christmas special.
Yes.
Oh man, I remember. I don't know if you ever did this. For a long time, that was like my favorite part of the day because I love Christmas, but it's exhausting. For me, we traveled with my parents, and then my wife's dad, and my wife's mom, and then my grandma's parents. We travel all over the place, and then at the end of the day, I finally get to just sit down and watch Doctor Who Christmas, and it was great.
Yes.
And now it's back, and it's so nice. I'm like, this is wonderful.
I mean, I love it, and for me, I'll say that as a clergy person who works on Christmas Eve, multiple services. I do the move into Christmas morning with the kids, and it's fun, and there's cooking going on. Like this Christmas special it's part of my Christmas present.
Yes.
And, after all is said and done, and everybody's contented, and we've eaten and celebrated Christ and one another and all these things, I get to watch a Christmas special and just have fun. Be a kid again at heart. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So before we get into this Christmas special, I gotta ask. I mentioned earlier A Christmas Carol, Doctor Who. That's like I have to go to it every year. I still don't know if it's my favorite Christmas special. I think it's one that feels, because there are a lot of really good Christmas specials from Doctor Who that don't feel that Christmassy, if that makes sense.
Right.
I'm thinking of, I think my favorite one, if I'm just doing it off the episode, there's the Peter Capaldi when he finally finishes the story arc with River Song.
Yes.
And, they have, which is funny because it ties back to A Christmas Carol, because he mentions he has one more day with his love. And how do you choose the right day? Of course, it's going to be Christmas. And then all these years later, the Doctor has a new face. It's Peter Capaldi's Doctor. He's there with his love. They get one last night. She's like, how dare you? You knew you had wasted our last night. And he's like, hey, do you want to know how long a night lasts on this planet? It's like 27 years or something. And she's like, I hate you. He's like, no, you don't. And I love that. I love how the Doctor is able to kind of, eat his cake and have it too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they love this kind of Dickensian, I guess, feel for some of these Christmas episodes, and it's really nice. I mean, the first, I believe, when the series first restarted. So we're talking ninth Doctor here. There's a Christopher Eccleston episode that is not actually on Christmas Day where he meets Charles Dickens. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
It's so easy. I mean, it feels so far back there that it's so easy to forget. But that's like I think that's the one very Dickens episode that wasn't a Christmas special, but also really interesting in its own right.
Of course, David Tennant's first episode was also a Christmas special, so you always have to, that was a special place. It's not very Christmassy, but so would you say the Charles Dickens is your favorite Christmas Doctor Who, even if it's not a special? Or
ooh, gosh, I don't know. So the one that I go back and watch over and over again for some kind of sentimental reason. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. I loved the Capaldi Jenna Coleman pairing.
Oh yeah.
12 and Clara. I mean, I really enjoyed that pairing. And the Christmas episode with Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought it was funny. It was fun to watch. and that scene at the very end of it when they reunite and she's no longer older, she's and they're just ready to get back into. There's a proposal scene. It's a very a very friend kind of agape proposal scene.
Yeah,
the TARDIS is there, all of time and space. Don't say no. And then they continue on into their adventure together. I just thought it was a sweet and fun episode.
Oh man, no, it's a beautiful one, especially also calling back to the Christmas Carol. I just can't help myself. There's that moment where the doctor's talking about Santa Claus, so we know he already has a relationship with Santa Claus, but he goes, Saint Nick, or as I like to call him, Jeff. Why is he Jeff?
Oh my gosh, that's a good one. Oh,
yeah. Which reminds me of the saying. I meant to bring this up last time, but I think it's also very true of this one as well as the other specials we talked about in the previous episode you were on, where it said that Doctor Who is too silly for adults but too dark for kids, and I feel like that's probably true, and I love it for that. And that's very true of this episode where we got singing goblins, baby eating. The Doctor has definitely identified himself as like LGBTQ community without making it in your face this time. I felt like, he just had that one quick remark about Houdini, and I'm like, okay, cool. So we have a gay doctor. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Such a good episode.
Man, it was. I loved it. Before we get to the episode proper stuff, this is the first time we really have a whole episode of Ncuti Gatwa's. I don't know if I'm saying that right yet. Oh, I got it finally. The 15th Doctor. We finally just have an episode of him. What did you think of Ncuti Gatwa?
I thought he was great as the Doctor, and it really gave me confidence that we're going to have a great run with him. It's going to be exciting, clever, and all the things that we love about the Doctor. There's this sense of energy. It's smart. There's a great rapport between him and his companion. Wonderful. And my youngest, who's 10, has been excited to see this iteration, and he was locked in. He's like, I can't wait for the spring. Let's do this. I need more of this Doctor. So, and that's this is what Doctor Who does so well. It crosses generations, and this was going to do quite well with that, I think.
Oh yeah. I was so excited. I read today that Russell T Davies thanked Disney because Disney, before they have anything air, and the show's home is like Disney Plus, they do like test runs. And the one thing people said about the original cut of the episode was they wish they had more of the Doctor. So he filmed a whole extra scene to like split in there so you had the Doctor sooner. And I'm like, you know what? As much as I was worried, I love a lot of the new Star Wars, so I'm not one of those like hater guys. But I was worried about Disney's influence on Doctor Who, especially when, you worry anytime something you love changes. And, you saw the singing goblins and some of the other stuff that like you knew about beforehand. And I'm like, oh no, they're trying to make it more kid friendly. Right. And I was like, I don't want it to change. That was my thing. Yeah. But I get in the singing fit. Like it wasn't some weird thing. Like it was weird, but it didn't feel forced in there or anything like there. The Goblins song about eating children. It was funny, honestly. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, somehow they made this work, and I loved it. I'm the same. Like I just want more of this Doctor. He was so much fun, and I go back to our last discussion. Yeah, it hit me watching this. We haven't seen the Doctor healthy before. Like this is a healthy version of the Doctor. Like him, like whenever he was at the club in the commercial, I was like, oh no, I don't want a party Doctor. And then I saw how it went down. I was like, oh no, he's just able to enjoy himself because he's healthy now. He's not constantly tormented. Like he's still got a little bit of sadness to him, but he's not tormented.
Well, but and even at that club scene, still on task, like there for a reason.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so one of the things that I loved here, which helped quite a bit. So I think the Disney testing bit that I'd heard about was smart, and I hope there is that kind of learning that continues to help this series. But one of the things that is sometimes a bit of a challenge with Doctor Who, and we saw this with Jodie Whittaker's run because it kind of stayed in this place, is that it usually takes 2 to 3 episodes for the Doctor to lock in who they are. There's always this kind of crisis of like, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. And and so you kind of need 3 back-to-back episodes, across a few weeks. And then by the 3rd or 4th episode, you're like, okay, finally, we kind of settled into the groove. I can enjoy this Doctor. We got Judy's character right off the bat. The Doctor was centered. And I appreciated that quite a bit.
Oh yeah, and like you said, the chemistry with the new companion, and this companion is this is the Gen Z companion. Like we're like you said, we're bridging the gaps with Doctor Who. We're getting ready for the next generation, and I thought it was genius. I thought it was genius. So yeah, let's just jump into it. Let's talk about what this episode was. So would you mind actually? Could you just kind of give like a quick summary? What happens in Doctor Who: The Church on Ruby Road? Spoiler warning for those who care about such things.
Yes. Well, so we early on discover that Ruby is an orphan, and so that kind of theme I thought was lovely to kind of bring forward this sense of what adoption means and that kind of thing across this episode. But we see this mysterious character that we assume is Ruby's mother. We assume this because culturally we've seen it happen in plenty of times. This mother leaving a child at an orphanage, and in this case at a church, the door of a church, and then moving away, kind of cloak over, hood overhead, almost as in shame that I've got to leave my child here. Well, though this woman, this person that we assume is a woman, is in heels and things like that. But again, we don't know, and we don't know if this is Ruby's mother or not. Ruby is trying to determine her parentage. We learn from an early scene here, but there's also these goblins that are in the background, and the goblins are like little like gremlins of a sort. They're messing with things in the background because of really they feed on the energy of mishap. Essentially, and so we and the Doctor is there coincidentally with which comes up a lot in the episode with Ruby, because the Doctor's trying to note these moments of mishap. The Doctor knows something is awry, and because of all these accidents that are happening. And so when the Doctor's in the fun club scene, twirling around, having fun, but also watching Ruby. And Ruby notes the Doctor and seems to connect with the Doctor's energy. And just before you know it, the Doctor's grabbing a glass as it falls off, the table. And so so they begin their time together. Ruby has been adopted. Ruby's adoptive mother cares for, also fosters children, and so is fostering this little baby that is abducted by these goblins, and then on Ruby's watch. So Ruby's, trying to climb the ladder of this goblin ship, and the doctor runs along, and we've seen this in some of the previews. Runs along, is like, who just jumps on the ladder of a flying, jumps on a flying ladder that's and chases after goblins who've taken a baby. Like, what are you? And so they both enter to this goblin ship where there is this. So of course they're apprehended, and then there is this scene where they're trying to find the baby and encounter this musical number about the goblins eating baby, which is hilarious. I mean, it's
so well done.
It's so well done, and I was so entertained by it until the doctor interrupts this a scene also with some singing, which I thought was interesting. But hey, they made it work.
Yeah.
And then these goblins, just fast forward a bit. Then so there's the rescue, but then the goblins are upset, and they, they've been robbed, and so what they end up doing is the level of the number of coincidences that happen around Ruby and the doctor are so again, they're feeding off this energy. So somehow they this is so flavorful that they travel back in time and seek to take Ruby and disrupt Ruby's whole existence. So then the doctor has to go back, and the doctor to save Ruby, but the doctor encounters this mysterious person who we assume to be Ruby's mother, does nothing to interact with them, notes them, maybe even knows who they are. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And rescues Ruby, and the timeline is reset, and then Ruby is off to an adventure with the doctor, having been encouraged to do so by a mysterious woman. Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's so many theories around this. The woman at the end who mentions the TARDIS, so she knows what a TARDIS is, and you're like, wait a minute, hold up, what? How do you know who it is? Everyone's talking. Does she have red nails? Is she the one who picked up the master's tooth? She does not have red nails, but that doesn't mean she couldn't have painted them. No one's born with red nails, really. So I'm so intrigued by her character. One thing I loved about the show, it did a lot of homages to other Christmas classics, right? So you have goblins at Christmas. I'm thinking like Tolkien's Letters to Father Christmas stuff. You got the goblins also have like the gremlin kind of vibe to them that you talked about. You even have that moment that's kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, where when she disappears, what is her foster parents' life? What is everyone's life without her? And you're just like, oh man, they just crammed all these like Christmas motifs into one without it feeling sliced up or anything. Like it ran smoothly. It was just a beautiful, to me, it was a beautiful special. I loved it. I even love how much stuff they set up without making it feel like a setup. Like it felt like its own episode. And at the same time, they set up these goblins are clearly a consequence of what happened at the edge of the universe. So it wasn't just the toy maker that came in. We also have other things that came in from outside of our reality. Because the doctor even mentions, oh yeah, it's different physics, it's different rules. So he has to relearn. Ropes are their kind of wiring. It's a different physics. It's a different everything. And I love that the doctor's so clever that, okay, it's a different system. Let me just figure out how it correlates to what I know, and then I'll figure it out.
Yes.
That was great. I was like, that.
Yeah, it's a new science. I mean, the doctor is learning new sciences and the way things work. Yeah, it was cleverly done.
Oh yeah. And then what was the other thing that they? Oh, I love that they're not. I thought when Russell T Davies told us he wasn't going to undo the endless child, I thought he just meant he was going to like go forward and not really mention it. But he's leaning into it. So now you have the Doctor who unknown parentage meeting up with a companion with unknown parentage, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can see where these storylines are gonna like cross, and I'm so excited to see where these fantasy realms are entering our reality, as well as these origin stories tying together. I'm so excited for this upcoming season.
Yes. More time travel, more beings who realize that the exploitation of moving through time is it could be a good thing for them. I mean, there's so much that was, like you said, set up subtly and so well in this episode.
Oh yeah. So if you had to go 0 to 10, Doctor Who, The Church on Ruby Road, what are we rating it?
Wow. This episode, well, let me say, I need to, because this was so good, I need to leave room in the scale. Like, so
Yeah.
I mean, it was so good, and I think it's going to get better. So, but I still want to say it's an 8.
Yeah. At least
it was so good. I just think that they're even going to get better, and so I need more room next time you ask me this question.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm like, I can't give it a 10 because there are other Doctor Who episodes I like more, and I do think it's going to get even better.
Yes.
Like, I think Don't Blink or Blink. Blink is an episode that deserves a 10.
Yes.
I think the more recent one that I can't think of the is it Wild Blue Yonder?
Wild Blue Yonder, yeah.
Yeah, I think it deserves a 10.
Yes.
This isn't quite to that level, so I'm thinking like 8.5 maybe.
Yeah.
But that is just a it feels wrong. Like it somehow still doesn't feel high enough, even though I know there are better episodes.
Right.
I loved it. I loved it so much. But I did want to get in a little bit more. We talked about that whole foundling thing. They both are unsure of their parentage, all that. And in the interview, they use that term foundling, and they go, "Is that an appropriate term?" So I kind of want to talk to you about that. How do we feel about that kind of terminology or ideas around the foundlings? Or should we not use that term? Is it okay in Doctor Who, but not real life? Or what are we thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I needed to think more on it. I mean, of course, when they first started talking about foundlings, I was all of a sudden, with the Mandalorian again, and
yeah,
right, similar language.
Grogu teams up with Ruby and the Doctor. Here we go.
Right. This is all the foundlings are on Disney Plus. But as language, always moves in and things move in and out of vogue. I don't know that there's anything necessarily negative about being someone who is found, because in some ways I like it. I mean, we sing it in the Christian tradition as Amazing Grace. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Or even if you were abandoned, but now you're found. That can be a good thing. The lost sheep is found, and so we tend to equate it in the Christian tradition, being found, as a very good and a warm thing. I don't know how PC it would be to be calling folks foundlings, but in that way, I didn't think it was negative. What about you?
Yeah, I think I agree. I feel like it's a context thing. In general, I don't like labels. Like if you're just labeling this group of people as foundlings and you're talking about them as if they're somehow different or separate from us, then okay, that's an issue. But if you're just kind of using that as a descriptor for the topic you're discussing, like they were specifically talking about her origins, so it made sense. But if you were just talking about her being like, oh, that foundling over there, then I'm like, okay, that's I don't like that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I feel like that pretty much goes across the board. I don't mind someone calling me a Christian, but it's when, when someone's like, oh, that Christian guy, then it's like, yeah, I don't love that.
Right. Right.
And that's just because, I'm trying to pick on myself, and it's easier because, once you start talking about other groups, it's like, that's,
Yeah.
But in general, I think labeling is bad. Descriptive is good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. When the label creates, the us and them, that can be, or creates distance, whatever the distance might be, that's not good. But and so it's interesting that that they spent so much time on that, because I think this whole foundling conversation will expand across the series.
And apparently Mavity will expand. They used it again, and I hear they're going to be visiting Isaac Newton again in the coming season. So I hope we get more on Mavity and can kind of tie that loose end up.
It's like this Mavity's becoming this like Mandela effect. It's like, how do you spell Bernstein Bears? Is it?
Oh man, I kind of love it. I really do. Also, one thing me and one of my friends are having a lot of fun with, because everything was like not science, rope science kind of thing on the ship. So we keep talking about these storylines and tying the threads. It's like a knot, and we keep making all the puns of the of the new physics we discovered with goblins, and it's like, oh, this got good. Doctor Who is when you can have fun with the conversations, and you're still like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I can't wait to find out, and I'm gonna make fun and puns while on the way. It's great.
Yes.
But speaking of foundlings, I did want to touch really quick on since you mentioned that you watched Percy Jackson, I feel like we should at least touch on this one, because that's sort of his background too. He wasn't really sure of his his origin, who is his dad, all this stuff, and he's not quite a foundling. He was with his mom, but he shows up at this camp with no parents, his mom's gone. He doesn't know who his dad is. So we still have this thread of where we come from, our birth. It's funny, like 2023 was our year of origins and cosmologies. And that seems like the origin of these characters is what they're really putting in the front of the conversation with these stuff. What do you think as far as like Percy Jackson? Did you read the books? Let's start there. Because I never read the books.
So I've not. Now, my eldest read the books. And so, I have bits and pieces through conversation with him. And now, having conversations with my youngest as he reads the books. So I'm aware, but I never read them myself. Watched the movies and the previous movies that were made, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, my cousin Allie is a huge fan. She's always read the books, and that was going to be one of our other guests who's sick, and that's why we're going to have our part 2 and kind of get some expert take from someone who's been geeking out on this pretty much their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But for people who haven't read the books and just kind of, I don't know if you watch the old movies. I think I watched some of them, but I don't really remember them. Yeah. So I felt like I was jumping into the show brand new, and the first episode I was iffy about. Second one I was starting to warm up. That third one that just came out this week, I was like, okay, you know what? Actually, no, I like this. This is good.
Yeah. One, I'd just say it's fun. I mean, when I was a kid, I read Greek mythology and both Greek and Roman mythology, and so I just interested in those characters, how they operate. I think Percy Jackson kind of been a fun way to acquaint folks with those mythic characters, and you learned a bit about some of those the arcs of those characters while introducing new characters, new demigods, and so it's fun in that kind of a way. I think the The author has done a great job in introducing this younger generations to mythology in a way that doesn't feel stale. And Percy Jackson does not feel stale. I think if you've seen the couple movies that were done previously, what we're seeing here lines up a bit with that first movie. And both because, I think mostly because when you do a series, you just have more time. I already enjoy it more than I enjoyed that movie. More exploration into the characters, and more nuanced characters.
Yeah, it very much feels like a young adult novel as a show. I'm like, I can tell this is for a younger audience than myself, but at the same time, you do have some of this like darker tones to some of the stuff, but then they lighten it up with a lot of whimsy. I love the whimsy. The whimsy is fun.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
No. I think it's really interesting so far. I'm curious to see where they take it because I haven't read the story. So, I'm kind of new to this and I'm like, okay, this is fun. I like what they're doing with these characters. I like the, which is funny because since you remember the movie, you might know what happens, but I'm over here like one of his friends going to betray him. It didn't say one of the people you took on your quest. So I'm thinking it's probably not one of the people you took on your quest.
Right.
I don't know yet.
Yeah. No, it's this is this is the interesting thing. So throughout these stories with demigods, you kind of have similar stories that repeat. So the gods are distant. They've got rules that bind their interaction with humanity, and because they are so powerful, you kind of need them set at a distance. You need some guardrails around this. Otherwise, there would be no series that would last too long. But the demigods who have this ability to flex back and forth, I mean, they're like mutants, so they've got these.
It does have a lot of X-Men vibe. Yeah,
they've got this extraordinary powers that are very specific, right? So this is very X-Men kind of thing. You got your extraordinary powers that are specific, but you are in other ways very human. And because you flex between the worlds, the world of humanity, the world of the gods, you are not bound by those rules.
Okay.
So you can both be an agent of creative order and flourishing, or you can also be an agent of great chaos.
Yeah. Well, and that's one where I don't want to like cram Jesus into everything. I'm not trying to be that guy, but when I see things like this camp and this, like, it's very community based.
Yeah.
Naturally, I'm going to compare it to the communities I'm a part of. And I see a lot of the same stuff in the church community where I'm looking, and you see some people who use the God card or the Bible card and are kind of jerks with it, right? We're like, well, God said this, so you're a sinner and you're awful. Like I see that in my community. I'm like, oh, I hate that. But you see similar stuff here where they're like very proud of it. This is my dad, so I can totally kick your ass, whatever. I hate that. Then you also see the people like Percy who are kind of scared of their real potential. Yeah. And you see that also in my community, right? Like there's so many people who are like very timid to the point where I'm like, you're claiming that God himself lives in you. What are you doing right now? Sometimes I'm like, you're going too far. You're being a jerk. And then some people I'm like, oh man. And then I'm, of course, always one of the two, right? Like I've never got it perfect. Sometimes I feel like, man, I could have been a little bit more bold there. And then sometimes I'm like, man, I was a jerk. So I see all of that and I'm like, of course I see it in my own community. How did you feel about like just the community standards, like just thinking about it in your own circles? Is it relate to reality a little bit, or you think it's just too far out there with the gods?
No. I think it does. I mean, you might think of, as you were talking, it made me think, well, what if I thought about these different parts of the camp as as denominations, right?
Yeah.
And having different parts of a camp, whether it be the houses in Harry Potter or these different camps and who relates to which god because of the parentage. You're held together by a common kind of go to the Harry Potter thing, common magic, a common belief, a common spirituality, if your will. But these different expressions of the gifts sometimes move you. You develop different character and different characteristics. And so it makes me think about, all of a sudden I'm with the Corinthian community, and everyone's got their spiritual gift, and there are these competing senses, like I'm better than you. And that's what's going on in this camp.
Oh yeah.
Hey, our parentage is this. We can do this. We're clearly, and so they're constantly competing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. No, that's good stuff. And it's wild to me, just thinking like real world, how many stuff in the Bible still feels relevant to our church denominations. I grew up Pentecostal, so it's easy when I look at Corinthians and he's talking about how you think you're better because you speak in tongues, but I tell you the gift of prophecy is even more. And I'm like, wait, hold up, fellow Pentecostal. Like Paul's kind of calling us out here, right?
Yep.
And then you have, places where it talks about like, hey, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but where's your faith? And I'm like, oh man, yeah, I was in seminary. That's still really relevant. You have this stuff that's still so relevant. We still kind of have those same camps today. Ravenclaw, Slytherin. Are you in the house of Hermes or Poseidon or?
And then you realize, of course, that at the end of the day, whether it is Hogwarts as a school or this community of demigods together, or whether it be Christianity as a global religion, it's actually when we are unified in our work, and that we see those differences not as things that are to be resisted or looked down upon or competed against, but we see this as all something that we can offer the world together. When our forces combine and we do the Voltron thing, then something amazing happens, right?
Oh yeah, man. And we're kind of seeing that in the Percy Jackson show now. They got 3 different people who aren't all from the same camp on their Odyssey, I'll call it, their quest from the gods. And it'll be fun to see how it goes and how everybody plays their part and works together. And, I'm sure we're going to see when they don't work together, how they fail. And it's going to be fun. I'm excited to see the future of it. And I just love communities like this. So I hope we get more of the camp and more seeing how the community interacts. It was a lot of fun. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about Percy Jackson before we kind of head to our wrap up? Or
oh no, I just think everybody should watch it, have fun with it, and let's, as you say, maybe let's continue to think about how community is forged through difficulty and travail.
Oh yeah. All right. Well then, with that, let's go ahead and wrap this. One thing we like to do at the end of our What's New episodes, I like to, instead of doing just one recommendation, picking one of the 3 we discussed and saying, if you had to just recommend one of these 3, which one are you lifting up? Honestly, for me, it's easy this week because I haven't seen Monarch yet. And Percy Jackson is good, but it's not Doctor Who good, in my opinion. I love the Doctor. I love a new Doctor. The energy of it all, the magic of it. It's a sci-fi show, but there's magic to it. And it's beautiful. Yeah. I love it. I got to lift that up. And I think, oftentimes it's hard with a series that's this long to find a good jumping on point. This is the perfect jumping on point. They're about to start all at season 1, even though it's a continuation. They want you to jump on at this point. So I think this is a perfect time to get into it. Justin, what are you thinking?
I agree. I mean, I like Monarch, but I'm with, as I kind of got in my head about it before, but really I like to see monsters fighting, and so there's less of that. I think the Percy Jackson stuff is fun, and I enjoy the way that my kids have connected with it. But there's just so much in Doctor Who, and so you can start here, move forward, but there's also plenty to go back and plumb the depths of that universe. So I would say
here's a show, including some audiobooks, some comic books.
Yes. There's a lot to mine there. I guess I'm saying it's a lot to mine there. So this is a good starting point, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I hope we get more Doctor Who in the future, and we can have Reverend Justin back to talk about that season 1 or series 14, whatever you want to call it, when it comes out. I can't wait for. Is it May? May, right?
Yeah, I think so. Gosh, yeah.
Exciting times. Exciting times. Well, once again, we want to thank Daniel Sigmund for being one of the supporters of the show. You rock, dude. We couldn't do this without you and supporters like him. So if you want to be like him, think about it. And if you missed the live recording, remember it's always on Facebook and YouTube. You can catch our live, so make sure you're following us there. And of course, we need you to do one very important thing for us. And remember, we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.